In the long history of human thought, few names shine as brightly as Plato. A student of Socrates, the teacher of Aristotle, and the founder of the Academy, Plato was not just a philosopher, he was an architect of ideas. His writings explored justice, love, politics, education, knowledge, and the very nature of reality. More than 2,000 years later, his words still challenge us, inspire us, and guide the way we think about the world. Today, we journey into the extraordinary life and legacy of Plato, the man who built the foundations of Western philosophy. Plato was born around 427 BCE in Athens, during the height of the city's golden age. He came from an aristocratic family. His father, Aristotle, claimed descent from the early kings of Athens, while his mother, Perictione, was related to the famous lawgiver Solon. Plato's birth name may have been Aristocles, but he became known as Plato, perhaps a nickname referring to his broad physique or his wide style of speech. Growing up in a city filled with art, drama, politics, and debate, young Plato was surrounded by the greatest cultural achievements of ancient Greece. Yet behind the brilliance of Athens, there was also war and political turmoil, a reality that would deeply shape his thought. The most decisive influence on Plato's life was his encounter with Socrates, the great philosopher who roamed the streets of Athens. Questioning citizens and exposing their ignorance, Plato became Socrates' devoted student. He was present at many of his discussions, listening to his relentless pursuit of truth and virtue. But in 399 BCE, everything changed. Socrates was put on trial, accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods of Athens. Despite his brilliant defense, he was condemned to death. For Plato, this was a turning point. The execution of his beloved teacher by a democratic government left him deeply suspicious of politics and determined to preserve Socrates' ideas in writing. After Socrates' death, Plato left Athens and began a period of travel and study. He visited Egypt, where he encountered ancient wisdom and mathematics. He traveled to Italy and Sicily, where he met followers of Pythagoras, whose ideas about numbers and harmony influenced his philosophy. Syracuse. He tried, unsuccessfully, to turn a young tyrant, Dionysius II, into a philosopher-king. This experiment nearly cost him his life and convinced him that philosophy and politics are uneasy companions. These travels enriched Plato's vision and helped shape the universal scope of his thought. When Plato returned to Athens, he founded the Academy, around 387 BCE. This was more than just a school. It was the first true institution of higher learning in the Western world. In the Academy's gardens, Plato taught philosophy, mathematics, and science. His students included many brilliant minds, the most famous being Aristotle. The Academy would survive for nearly 900 years, influencing countless generations. In many ways, it was the ancestor of today's modern universities. Plato wrote in the form of dialogues, conversations between characters, often featuring Socrates as the central voice. Some of his most famous works include The Apology, Socrates' defense speech at his trial; The Symposium, a profound discussion on the nature of love; Phaedo, an account of Socrates' final moments before his death; The Republic, Plato's masterpiece, exploring justice, politics, and the ideal society; Timaeus, a dialogue about the cosmos and creation; The Laws, his later reflections on government and law. Through these works, Plato preserved the spirit of Socratic, questioning while adding his own powerful insights. One of Plato's most famous ideas is the theory of forms. He argued that the world we see around us, the world of change and imperfection, is only a shadow of a higher reality. True reality lies in the forms, perfect, eternal, unchanging ideas. For example, every circle we draw is imperfect, but the form of the circle is flawless. Every act of justice may be flawed, but the form of justice is perfect. For Plato, knowledge was not just opinion. It was the soul's ability to grasp these eternal truths. Perhaps the most famous passage in Plato's works is the Allegory of the Cave, found in the Republic. He asks us to imagine prisoners chained inside a cave, seeing only shadows on the wall. For them, the shadows are reality, But if one prisoner escapes and sees the outside world, the sun, the trees, the real objects, he realizes the truth. The cave represents ignorance. The journey out of the cave is the journey of philosophy from illusion to truth. This allegory has inspired countless thinkers, artists, and educators throughout history. In the Republic, Plato describes his vision of the ideal state. Society, he argued, should be divided into three classes: rulers, the wise philosopher-kings; guardians, the soldiers and protectors; producers, farmers, craftsmen, and workers. Plato believed that only philosophers who love wisdom and truth were fit to rule. His vision of a just society was radical, but it also revealed his skepticism about democracy, which had executed Socrates, Plato's greatest student, Aristotle. Admired his teacher but also challenged him. While Plato emphasized the world of forms, Aristotle focused on the natural world and empirical observation. Plato sought universal truths. Aristotle sought practical knowledge. Together, their dialogue became the foundation of Western philosophy. Plato continued teaching and writing until the end of his life. He died around 347 BCE in Athens at the age of about 80. His academy continued for centuries, carrying forward his vision of philosophy as a way of life. Plato's influence is impossible to measure. His dialogues shaped Christian theology, influencing thinkers like Augustine. His political ideas inspired and challenged philosophers from Machiavelli to Karl Popper. His metaphysics influenced centuries of science, art, and education. Even today, when we ask questions about truth, justice, love, or the meaning of life, we are walking in the footsteps of Plato. Plato was not just a thinker. He was a visionary who dared to look beyond the shadows and search for eternal truth. From the death of Socrates, to the founding of the Academy, to the eternal words of the Republic, Plato's life reminds us that philosophy is not just theory, it is a guide to how we should live. Over 2,000 years later, Plato still speaks to us, reminding humanity that wisdom begins with wonder.